Okay, once again through the magic of video editing, I've had time to think about what to cover next. Otherwise, this tutorial would be like one giant freestyle rap marathon, which it is not. I don't even have a backbeat. So don't be a closer, instead open face poser, and you'll become an ace on how to animate the face. Alright, reopen that last speech scene we covered if it's not up here already. We're going to add a facial expression to go with this line here. The first thing we're going to do is create another channel just to stay organized. Once again, right-click here and create a new channel. I'm calling this animation again. On more complex scenes, I usually separate it further between head and body movements, but this is fine for now. Now to create a facial animation, right-click on the blank space in the channel, then click on Flex Animation. The name can be anything. I'm sticking with something exciting like facial expression, even though I'm tempted to make up a code name. Press Enter, then stretch it out so it covers the duration of the line. There's no limit to the length of these. Make them as long as you want them. Once that's set up, make sure it's selected, then click on the Flex Animations tab. Right-click and press Show if it doesn't show up. Now take a look at all these options. As you can see, there are dozens of variables related to animating the face. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory, like chin raiser here. Others you have to experiment with to figure out what they're referring to. All these options are related to simulating different muscles in the face. I'm not going to go over what every single one does here because that would take a long time and it's something you can easily figure out on your own. Also, these change depending on what model you're using. I do encourage you to go through these one by one so you can figure out what each track does. Some of them are practically useless, others can make all the difference with your character's expression. So let's experiment a little bit. I'm going to try out Wrinkler. Double click on it. Actually, you may have to triple or quadruple click on it. It's not the most responsive. And to add a plot point, it's just like the ramp window. You hold down Control and click on the blank space somewhere. Now that it's created a point, let's scan over it to figure out what it's changing. As you can see, that raised the muscles around his nose, which changes his expression like he's displeased with something. Let's add another one to go with it. Click a few times on Lowerer. This is used to lower his eyebrows. Now add another point to go with the other one. And now when we scan over it, he looks like he's ready to bust some heads. So you can see how easy it is to change expressions with just a few adjustments to these tracks. However, this expression isn't really appropriate for this line, so I'm going to delete them. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Now you just drag and select the points, then press the delete key. And to the best of my knowledge, you can only delete the points one track at a time. We're not going to be using these particular tracks now, so if you want a quick way to collapse them, you can right-click here and go to Collapse. Then in this case, All Tracks. You can expand tracks the same way. I still haven't figured out which is faster, doing the quadruple clicking thing or right-clicking and clicking on Expand. For now, I'm just going to keep rapid-fire clicking on them until they open. And you may notice these old tracks are still highlighted in green, but as long as they don't have any plot points on them, it doesn't matter. They won't affect anything. Now let's open up some new tracks to create an animation for this line. When he says this, the character is kind of alarmed, so I'm going to try and recreate that. The first thing I'm going to do is open his eyes more so he doesn't look like he's falling asleep. So open up the lid raiser track here, which stands for eyelid raiser, and make a plot point towards the top. Then let's zoom out a bit and make another one towards the end so he holds it. This actually isn't meant to be very gradual. The idea here would be to start showing this look on his face before you start filming, so you don't even have to worry about fading it in. Now when we scan over it, you can see his eyes shoot wide open. Now he looks like he means business. Next, I'm going to raise his eyebrows, which is going to take two steps. The first will be the inner raiser. So open that and create a plot point on both ends. Now he looks pretty worried, but I'm going to raise the rest of them so he looks more alarmed. So just repeat the same thing on the outer raiser here. And he's definitely starting to look a little freaked out now. Let's play it and see how it looks with the sentence.
Somebody call the police! A fight's broken out!
Well, it definitely fits the mood better, though it still looks a little bit wooden. However, we don't have to worry about that because that's what idling animations will help take care of. If you really want to go the extra mile, though, you could use more plot points to vary the intensity more, or even more tracks or expressions. For some lines, you might even want to change his facial expressions as he delivers certain words. If so, there's a helper tool for that, the timing tags like we used with gestures. To create one here, just right-click, then go to Timing Tags, then Insert. Again, you can name it anything. And now as you can see, it lines up with all the different tracks, so it's easier to coordinate changes in expressions. And if you need to adjust the timing slightly, you can also stretch the timings in between different tags, just like gestures. I'm going to get rid of this one since I'm not using it. And really, that is all you need to know in order to animate faces. I went through this section relatively quickly compared to the others, but that's only because the fundamentals behind it are pretty simple. You just plot points for each track as you need to, and change the intensity accordingly. Now what I've created here is an extremely basic example. This can get very complex and time-consuming the more you animate your face. So if you want lots of subtle changes where you're working with a dozen or so tracks, this part can take a long time to do. But now that you've learned how to do it, the rest of this is up to you. I have heard from another animator that I've worked with that it's easier if you look in a mirror when you're trying to recreate the expression you want. Then you can notice more subtle differences you might not think of normally. This sounds like good advice to me. I've done the same thing with doing head bobbing animations, which I'll cover in the next segment. Now, as much as I'd like to end this section right here and now, I probably should cover how expressions work. These are another way of creating facial expressions. They're less complicated, but are also less versatile than flex animations.